Most Western men think they have a good idea of what dating in China might be like. But the reality only becomes clear once they're actually there, living in the culture, meeting people face to face, and feeling the difference directly. And what they discover is nothing like the stereotypes, nothing like the assumptions, and certainly nothing like the simplified stories people repeat online. Today, I want to walk you through what genuinely happens when older Western men start dating in China. The real experiences, the emotional shifts, the moments of connection, the surprises, and the truths nobody talks about, but every man over 40 deserves to hear. When older American men first arrive in China, the most unexpected change isn't something external. It's the way they suddenly feel about themselves. Decades of dating in the West may have taught them that their age pushes them into the background, that younger women don't notice them, that the dating world is shrinking. But the moment they start interacting with people in China, they realize the entire framework is different. Because here, age isn't treated like a countdown timer. It's treated as a sign of depth, stability, and life experience. Instead of becoming invisible, many older Western men feel seen in a way they haven't felt in years. What surprises most men is how quickly women notice their presence. Not because they're foreigners, but because they project a different kind of energy, a calmer confidence, a grounded sense of self, a maturity that comes from navigating real life. Younger women in China are often surrounded by men dealing with enormous social and professional pressure, and that pressure can produce relationships filled with tension, uncertainty, and emotional inconsistency. So when they meet a man who carries himself with ease, listens thoughtfully, speaks clearly, and expresses himself without anxiety, it creates a distinct contrast, one that immediately sets the tone for deeper connection. What follows next is something older men don't expect. Conversations feel more intentional, more sincere, and more curious. Women ask about your life not to test you, but because they genuinely want to understand who you are. They want to know how your experiences shaped you, what your values are, how you view the world, and what you've learned along the way. For a man in his 40s or 50s who has spent years becoming wiser and more self-aware, these conversations feel natural, not forced, because you've lived enough life to have something meaningful to say, and women can sense that authenticity immediately. Another aspect that becomes clear very quickly is how much emotional steadiness matters. Many younger women in China have told me the same thing in different words. They appreciate a man who doesn't bring chaos into their lives. They want someone who can talk through problems without shutting down, who can handle stress without exploding, and who brings emotional clarity rather than confusion. These qualities, patience, perspective, and stability, are often strongest in older men, and women notice those traits right away. There's also a refreshing level of transparency in dating. When a woman is interested, she communicates it. When she wants to see you, she makes time. When she cares, she shows it. And that kind of clarity can feel like a breath of fresh air for older men who are used to a modern Western dating culture filled with uncertainty, mixed signals, or people constantly keeping their options open. In China, the intentionality behind dating often creates a smoother, more balanced dynamic that encourages trust rather than games. But what older men really don't expect is how dating in China affects their sense of self. It's almost as if they remember a version of themselves they thought was gone. The confident version, the attractive version, the valued version. Many men describe it as a renewal, not because someone is validating them, but because the cultural environment allows them to appreciate qualities they've always had, but rarely received credit for. They become more attentive to their appearance, more thoughtful in their communication, more active in their lifestyle, and more intentional in their choices. The relationship doesn't change who they are. It reveals who they've always been. Of course, cultural differences exist, and they surface naturally. The beauty of these differences is that, when handled with respect and humor, they lead to genuine bonding. You learn about traditions and family dynamics, about expectations and customs, about habits that may initially seem unfamiliar, but eventually become fascinating. When both people approach those differences with curiosity instead of resistance. They create a foundation of mutual understanding that strengthens the connection rather than complicates it. Families, which many older Western men worry about, respond more positively than expected. Yes, some are traditional, and yes, some will have questions, but when they see sincerity, kindness, and maturity, their hesitation often fades. What matters most is whether you show respect and genuine commitment. Many families find comfort in the reliability and steadiness that older Western men bring, especially when contrasted with the pressures younger local men face. Another dimension of dating in China that goes unspoken is the natural balance that forms between the partners. You bring life experience, emotional grounding, patience, and a sense of direction. She brings optimism, curiosity, warmth, and a refreshing energy that helps you reconnect with parts of yourself you may have forgotten. This exchange doesn't feel transactional. It feels human. It feels like two people offering each other what they naturally have, creating a harmony that's difficult to find in many Western dating environments. And the greatest truth of all is this: dating in China often shifts the way older Western men see themselves. Not in a superficial way, but in a deeply personal one. They feel heard again. They feel valued. They feel interesting, stable, wanted, appreciated. And that emotional shift changes not just their dating life, but their overall sense of identity and confidence. So when older Western men say that dating in China changed their lives, they're not talking about fantasy or unrealistic expectations. They're talking about what it feels like when a culture finally recognizes and appreciates the qualities you've been building your entire life. They're talking about what happens when you're treated with respect, curiosity, and warmth. They're talking about feeling like a man again, not because someone tells them so, but because the experience itself brings that truth to the surface. That's what really happens when Western men date in China. Not fairy tales, not exaggerations, just genuine human connection. The kind many older men forgot was possible. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content, comment, and like.